Welcome back to the Super Sim series, where I've decided to make just one sim who will gain almost every trait, master every skill, graduate with all of the university degrees, reach the top of every career, and complete every collection. Last episode, our Super Sim Tina left a life of drama behind her and became an admired icon amongst her Copperdale High peers. After becoming a perfect teenager, she then graduated from high school early and stepped into the world of adulthood, where she learned that she was a kleptomaniac. However, it wasn't all good news. Tina also had to deal with her mother Sally's death, and this led to deep regret over handing Mars a potion of youth when her own mother might have needed it more. But you know what they say, love is blind, though in this case it was more of a strong crush. Also, the key word here is was, because Mars's hot and cold antics turned Tina off fast. Now as a young adult, Tina's first point of call was to visit Moonwood Mill, and as she searched the underground tunnel network here, she thought of her mother Sally's passing, and in particular that we as humans are so frail. Swim in cold weather, death. Spend too long in the sun, death. Laugh too hard, become too angry, or even too embarrassed, yes, death. Not to mention the world was filled with hazards like cowplants and killer beds. As Tina emerged from the underground tunnel network, having obtained one of the rare Moonwood wands that she was searching for, she realized her new goal. She wanted to be death-proof, and she thought up a plan that would give her layers upon layers of immunity to death. Truly, the Grim Reaper would be furious. To kickstart this new goal, Tina used her many werewolf ability points to unlock every available power. She picked up Lunar Blessing and Vicious Howl, plus Hunting Party, Primal Instincts, and Super Speed. Most importantly, Tina acquired the Immortal Wolf power, which as you likely guessed, grants her immortality. But this werewolf power was just a temporary part of Tina's plan to become death-proof, because rather than be death-proof as a werewolf, she wanted to be death-proof as a regular human sim. Only she wasn't quite ready to be a regular sim just yet, because she first wanted to use her powers to teach Mars a lesson. As the sun began to set, Tina paid Mars a visit, swapping over to the lone wolf aspiration in the process. After Mars welcomed Tina inside, she then made her way up to his bedroom, where she stole his favorite light and then spent a while completely trashing and scratching up his room. Mars wasn't too happy about this, which signaled to Tina to keep on going. And after trashing his room, she ferociously intimidated him and scared him off of the lot, before then inviting him back over to his own house and then scaring him again. In the process, Tina unlocked the Werewolf Menace ability, which would stop her from feeling guilty when scaring other Sims. And with Mars scared off the lot, Tina decided to spend the night trashing Mars's house. She ate his fridge before smashing up a bunch of kitchen appliances and then moved into the living room, where she smashed the television and scratched up a heap of Mars's furniture. All this smashing and scratching completed the Unleash the Beast part of the Lone Wolf aspiration. But it was then that I decided to hit pause on the Lone Wolf aspiration. You see, the reward trait, being threatening presence, makes other Sims fear you to the point of fainting, and so rather than help Tina with her other goals, picking up this trait early would likely make many of Tina's other goals a lot more difficult. And so, after swapping over to the Cure Seeker aspiration, Tina returned to a now snow-covered Moonwood Mill and harvested some wolfsbane in a few locations before then going home. Here, Tina spent some time cleaning, seeing as her house was still trashed from her huge birthday bash, and she then planted a wolfsbane and took a moment to fix up her needs. While Tina was still focused on her ultimate plan to be death-proof, she also had another thing in mind: university. On a sunny Sunday morning, Tina visited the Foxbury campus, keen to see what the university had to offer. After exploring the grounds, Tina then decided to sit in on a mixology skill class. I mean, it was new skill day after all, and this class saw Tina acquire and reach level 4 of the mixology skill in the process. She loved it so much that she decided to attend 2 more mixology skill classes at Foxbury that day, springboarding her to level 6 of the mixology skill. But she wasn't done yet. Tina then headed over to visit the Brightchester University campus, and after taking a moment to embrace the Brightchester Spirit Corps creativity celebration by helping to paint some murals, she then went and sat in on 2 more mixology skill classes that afternoon, which saw her soar to level 8 of the mixology skill. skill. After returning home, Tina sold some of her plant's produce before mourning her mother Sally for a short while and then leaving a sugar skull offering, which successfully summoned a Day of the Dead celebrator, and in this case it was her high school friend Sydney Price. Thankfully, Sydney was his awesome self and quickly handed Tina a new pink sugar skull for her collection. And then upon returning home, Tina noticed that her bin had been knocked over, which meant one thing: her mother Sally's ghost was around. Sally broke Tina's toilet and generally spent the night causing chaos while Tina tried to sleep. It was clear that as long as Sally was a ghost, the chaos would continue. Sally spent the night telling stories to the fridge, talking to plants, and cheerleading, and we love her for it. The following morning, Tina fixed up her needs, repaired and cleaned the house, and also tended to her plants before selling some produce. And after it reached 9 AM, Tina whipped out her phone and signed up for another mixology skill class that she then attended. And you better believe that Tina has become more obsessed with mixology skill classes than I was when I first discovered K-pop. For the record, that was peak obsession. After Tina returned home, she then signed up to 4 more classes that day, which brought her incredibly close to maxing her mixology skill. Then as night fell, Tina went straight to sleep before waking, fixing her needs, and enjoying a morning of cooking a delicious breakfast, where she discovered that she likes cooking. She also left another sugar skull offering, with the Day of the Dead celebrator being Sergio Romeo. His last name reminded Tina of Romeo and Juliet. The romantic moments, not the tragic ending, and Tina was a little interested in this snazzily dressed man. Thankfully, the fact that Sergio was materialistic and hated children was balanced by the fact that he was a hottie. And so after Tina secured another sugar skull for the collection, she spent a little time flirting. Following this, Tina headed home where she tended to her plants before it was time for, well, you guessed it, going to another mixology skill class. And it was here that Tina maxed the mixology skill mid-class. But the real win came when Tina returned home from her 11th mixology skill class, where it was revealed that she'd earned the mixology specialist certificate, which is pretty much a hidden mixology degree. I was really lucky here because Sims can't attend skill classes for skills that they're already level 10 in. And so with Tina maxing the mixology skill, this had essentially been my last chance to obtain the mixologist certification. I know, I was almost sabotaged by how quickly Tina gained skill levels thanks to all of her bonus traits. After taking a moment to warm herself up, Tina then visited Moonwood Mill once again, where she returned to exploring the underground tunnel network. It was here that she found a large pet poop and a fossil, and then later a frog and a telescope. As the sun set, Tina returned home where she paid her bills and fixed up her needs, and the following morning I swapped over Tina's aspiration to freelance botanist before making a backyard renovation. Tina waved goodbye to the water slide and then said hello to a greenhouse, which did eat into most of Tina's saved funds. Tina then purchased some uncommon plant packets and opened them, before planting a green bean and a crocus that she already had, as well as a Christmas rose and a regular rose that she had gained from the plant packets. And Tina even moved her trash plant into the greenhouse too. It was then time for her to take a very quick trip to Tartosa, where she purchased a wide range of flowers that she didn't already own, before then returning home and planting them. I stuck to my self-inflicted limitation of only being allowed to plant one of each type of flower, and after all of the new plants were in the ground and watered, Tina had completed the first part of the freelance botanist aspiration. Tina now needed to evolve 5 plants, and sadly evolving them with the gift of Sulani power didn't seem to count for this aspiration. This meant that it was time to fertilize like no one has fertilized before. Slight exaggeration. But thankfully Tina could evolve her trash plant right after fertilizing it, and so just 4 more plants needed evolving. Tina spent the rest of the night embracing Winterfest by making a grand turkey dinner before she then got a knock at the door. She thought that it would be Father Winter, but it was a man named Jajomar, which is unfortunate because now I keep thinking of Jojomart from Stardew Valley, and hence he's giving me visions of corporate greed. But much like Sergio, Jajomar is also a bit of a hottie, which does take my mind off of his name. Despite their amazing compatibility, Jajomar was also revealed to be a vampire, which naturally makes him a sworn enemy of werewolf Tina. Yes, it's a tale as old as Twilight. Sensing this, the ghost of Sally also paid Jajomar a visit to lay down the law. And yes, this is one of those first dates that becomes real complicated really quick. But hey, even if Father Winter never showed, the turkey grand dinner was still a huge success, and despite the bad name and the vampire werewolf taboo, Tina was warming to Jajomar. After a night's rest that was broken up by a short rampage which Tina was thankfully able to regain control from, it was then time for another trip to Moonwood Mill. And in fabulous news, after exploring the tunnel some more, Tina obtained another Moonwood wand, this time in blue, meaning that her Moonwood wand set was complete. After returning home, Tina was exhausted, and so I had her get some shut-eye, and upon waking she went all in on fertilizing more of her plants, before swapping over to the Cure Seeker aspiration and collecting the final wolfsbane that she needed to for it. Tina technically could cure herself now, as apart from completing the lone wolf aspiration that I was leaving for later, she had finished all of the other aspirations and unlocked every single werewolf power. Well, besides the repeatable legacy of the Lycan power that trades werewolf ability points for satisfaction points. But curing herself would also see Tina leave behind her immortality, and I wasn't quite ready to do this until all the pieces were in place for her to achieve immortality as a regular sim, and so I swapped Tina back to the freelance botanist aspiration. The next day Tina kept her needs met and spent a lot of time fishing at Oasis Springs Park and at a few other locations, where she made some progress on the Angling Ace aspiration and the fish collection by catching some new fish, and very importantly she also hooked a cowplant berry which would be needed quite soon. Sadly, while reeling in some fish, Tina also decided that fishing wasn't something that she enjoyed, and so to make the experience a little more exciting she invited Sergio over to fish with her in San Myshuno so that she could get to know him a little better. And let's just say that Sergio was as impressed with Tina as I am with Sergio's bright red glasses. For the record, that is very impressed. And you better believe that not even a scampering rat could come between their flirting. After completing the first stage of the Angling Ace aspiration, Tina returned home and swapped back over to the freelance botanist aspiration, and the next few days went by rather fast. Tina tended to her needs and, perhaps more importantly, cared for and even spent some time talking to her plants. Strangely, Jajomar rocked up one night at 4 AM in the morning, supposedly with something important to say, though despite a bit of flirting, in the end he said nothing of importance. Later, when New Year's Eve rolled around, Tina invited over some friends to celebrate. And by friends, I mean lovers plus Mars, with the main purpose of the night being to make Mars jealous. During the displays of affection, Tina uncovered that she's a romantic, and Mars got totally jealous. He thought he had Tina wrapped around his finger, but little did Mars know that he was dealing with an icon who knew how to make all of the boys swoon. I mean, Sergio even asked to move in, to which Tina said absolutely not. A ghostly Sally emerged that night too, keen to wish Tina all the best, and it was all around a great night. Well, for everyone except Mars, who moodily used Tina's computer and then returned home looking miserable. Then the following day, Tina visited the flea market and purchased a couple of frogs before returning home. Eventually, Tina could fertilize her plants again, and in turn this allowed her to evolve the 5 plants needed to complete the second stage of the freelance botanist aspiration. And I then sped through this third stage. I fertilized 5 more plants in seconds, and afterwards I took a range of cuttings from various plants before purchasing and opening some starter herbs to obtain parsley and then growing it, as parsley grows to maturity in a matter of hours. I then grafted the plant before then selling it, and I then repeated this process 2 more times in order to complete the third stage of the freelance botanist aspiration. Also yes, Tina did go on a werewolf rampage right in the middle of all this. Completing this brought Tina to the final stage of the aspiration, which required her to evolve 10 plants to be at least excellent quality, of which she'd thankfully already done 8. She also needed to grow a cow plant, and thankfully she'd fished up the berry to do this days earlier. As the sun rose on a spring morning, Tina planted her cowplant berry and then turned her attention to another important part of her immortality plan: raising beetles in a mighty mite home. You're probably a little confused. And I don't blame you, but trust me when I tell you that this will form a very important part of a death-proofed Tina. With her grand plan on track and chaos on her mind, Tina paid her bills and then organized a little outing with Mars. She arranged a fun day out singing karaoke together, and she told Mars that she was willing to let the past be the past and move on as friends, and Mars eagerly lapped this up. But unfortunately for Mars, it was all an act. You see, as perfect as Tina is, she also has her flaws. And in her case, she's rather vindictive. After supposedly making amends with Mars, Tina then mysteriously had to bail on the catch-up a little early, and she left Mars in the capable hands of some randoms that they just met. She then travelled straight to Mars's house in Oasis Springs while he was occupied and broke into it. Here she swiped his bear chair because she knew it had sentimental value, before then snooping around for secrets, where she discovered that Mars was obsessed with llamas. Let's be honest, this secret was a redeeming factor, and with this newfound knowledge, Tina slipped out of Mars's house as if nothing had ever happened. Well, besides the stolen seat, but anyway. She left the scene just as Mars arrived back home, and just before she peed her pants as well. And thankfully, after returning home and making it to the toilet in time, Tina then headed to sleep. But not for long, as she woke early in the morning thanks to a visit from her ghost mother who was living for the days old turkey. It was then that Tina opened up to Sally about her plans to become death-proof. And Sally, well, she wanted in. Tina promised her mother that she would bring her back. But unfortunately, the plan to death-proof herself wouldn't quite work the same on her mother. Despite this, Tina did know of another way, and she told her mother to be patient. While it would take a little while, Tina did vow to bring Sally back to life, both for Sally and for herself, as the only thing more chaotic than an alive and well Sally is a ghost Sally. The following morning, Tina used her gift of Sulani to create her 9th excellent plant. She also sold her produce and spent some time chatting to her growing cow plant. It was an otherwise relaxing day filled with guitar playing, where she reached level 7 of the guitar skill, as well as reading, because books are the best. Seriously though, when someone holds a book, it literally makes them like 3 times more attractive. The following morning, Tina tended to her plants before using her gift of Sulani power to evolve her orchids to excellent quality, and this meant that all she needed to do was grow her cow plant in order to complete the freelance botanist aspiration. Tina also spent the very cloudy morning feeding her beetles and collecting beetle nuggets, before then taking some time to continue nurturing them. As it was a bit of a miserable day, Tina stayed indoors and played Blick Block on the computer before looking for pen pals. She also continued jamming and practicing on her guitar, reaching level 8 of the skill in the process, before fixing up her needs, growling a lot, and heading to bed. The following morning, Tina tended to her plants and then went on yet another werewolf rampage. Holding her umbrella with perfect super sim skill, she prowled on all fours to the theme park where she rampaged and peed in the middle of the park. Thankfully it was raining, so her pee kind of blended in, so to speak. It's also now that I'm realizing that you can never trust a puddle in The Sims. Tina prowled and raced around the neighborhood that afternoon, and after making her way back home and returning back to her human form, Tina was very happy, for she knew that this would be her last werewolf rampage for a very long time. Later that afternoon, Tina sold her produce before receiving a phone call from Sergio asking her on a date in Henford on Bagley. Tina was quick to accept. After all, it was love day, and Tina was a romantic. Only while it started well, Tina was left less than impressed when Agnes Crumplebottom whacked her with her handbag while Sergio simply watched on and did nothing. And her fears were made worse when she realized that Sergio, well, he wasn't the best kisser. The chemistry, it was okay, but it wasn't anything to scream from atop the Moonwood Mill Mountains about. Tina ended the date early and returned home. Things weren't completely over with Sergio, but she was far from obsessing over him. As the sun began to set, Tina made her way to the Spice Festival, where she harvested some perfect quality crops before then failing the Spicy Curry Challenge. She also purchased a festival t-shirt and then made her way back home. Following a night's sleep, Tina woke very eager for her cow plant to finally grow up. She spent some time gardening and harvesting more beetle nuggets from her insect farms, and honestly also napped for a long while too. It was at around 8 PM that night that her cow plant, who was now named Muverick, grew up. This saw Tina complete the freelance botanist aspiration and be awarded the naturalist trait, which would make her completely immune to death from fire. This was the first step to becoming death-proof, and it was also the step that kickstarted a chain of events that would see Tina become near immortal very, very fast. Tina then swapped over to the Cure Seeker werewolf aspiration and then purchased a bar before mixing the Wolf Begone drink. Once made, it shimmered in the moonlight. But before drinking it, there was one more thing to do. Tina had 3 werewolf ability points, and she used them to purchase the Legacy of the Lycan 3 times, granting her an additional 750 satisfaction reward points. And after this it was time. Before she could talk herself out of it, Tina grabbed the drink and downed it in one go. She felt its effects instantly, and before she knew it, her werewolf abilities and urges were stripped from her as she returned to human form. This saw her complete the Cure Seeker werewolf aspiration and be awarded the Lunar Link trait, meaning that she'll still benefit from the lunar cycle and will still be able to howl, and her time as a werewolf meant that she also gained the Werewolf Ally trait, which would make it so that other werewolves would be much less scary to her. But amid these new perks also came a fear, for when Tina's werewolf powers were stripped away, so too was her immortality, and she was all too aware that a giant cow plant named Muverick was right behind her, and as adorable as he was also a little bit scarier now. Tina headed inside and put the next part of her death-proofing plan into action, from completing aspirations, successful holidays, and cashing in werewolf ability points. Tina now had just over 10,000 satisfaction points, and it was time to cash them in for life-saving rewards. She picked up Cold Acclimation and Iceproof to make her immune to dying from cold weather. She then picked up Heat Acclimation and Heatproof to make her immune to dying from hot weather. Additionally, she purchased Storm Chaser to make her much more resistant to lightning-based deaths, and finally she grabbed Waterproof. Waterproof isn't because it's potentially life-saving, but more so because who has time to deal with being wet? Certainly not Tina. Overall, these costed 6,500 satisfaction points, but they were important for survival. And once purchased, it was then time to enact the next phase of Tina's death-proofing plans. As the sun rose on the first day of summer, Tina had breakfast and prepared to wash it down with something special, being 3 back-to-back glasses of Beetlejuice, which Tina could thankfully make thanks to the beetle nuggets that she'd gathered from her beetles earlier. While making these, Tina discovered that mixology is a skill that she likes, and upon drinking the 3rd Beetlejuice in a row, something a little special happened. Red smoke enveloped her, and Tina permanently transformed into a ghost. And yes, sometimes the path to immortality involves a temporary stint as a ghost. Following this, Tina sold her bar and purchased the Whispering Well and additionally a gemology table. Now Tina was a little broke, and annoyingly with the start of summer many of Tina's plants had reset, making it harder to earn money, though thankfully her expensive orchids were still producing flowers, and so not everything was lost. Ghost Tina spent the rest of the night and early morning training up her gemology skill level, managing to get all the way up to level 5, and after crafting a couple of gemstones, Tina was then ready to get down to business and create what she was truly after. She took a quick break to fix her needs and then got to crafting a bling necklace made with a hematite gemstone. The important thing here was the hematite gemstone, as when charged on the crystal grid and worn, jewelry made from this gemstone would make it so that the wearer cannot die. Of course, it's not foolproof. The necklace could run out of charge without me realizing, and on top of this, Tina is currently a ghost, so it's kind of useless right now. That being said, after crafting for a little while, the jewelry was ready, and Tina immediately bought a crystal grid to begin charging up its power. There was one final piece of the death-proofing puzzle left. After a night's sleep and some time spent fixing up her needs, Tina then super sold her harvestables, which pretty much just meant her orchids and lilies as everything else was still regrowing, you know, thwarted by the plants being bugged. Also, very sadly, my laser focus on death-proofing Tina did the exact opposite for Muverick the cow plant, who sadly passed away that morning. He will certainly be missed. I think. Tina currently had just over 3,000 simoleons, but she needed more for the final stage of her immortality plan, and so she took a moment to visit Willow Creek Park. Using her charisma skill, Tina spent the day instantly winning over various Sims, before then requesting a 2,000 simoleon loan from them that she had no intention of paying back. And after making a quick 6 grand, Tina then returned home, and it was then time for her to turn her attention to the giant wishing well that she had bought. You see, this well can grant wishes, and ghosts are able to wish for life, with a small chance of the wisher being brought back to their human form with a few added perks. However, by presenting a 5,000 simoleon offering to the well first, its face will change to a happy one, and a happy well face provides the biggest chance of getting the best wish outcome that will bring Tina back to life. And so after presenting this offering to the well, Tina then tossed a single coin into the well and wished for life. Sadly, the outcome was neutral, meaning no resurrection. Tina had to wait a little while before making another wish. A few hours later at 1 AM the following morning, she tried again. This time she got a positive outcome which saw her gain a death flower. It was a handy reward, but it was not the one that she was after. After some ghostly bonding with Sally that night, at around 10 AM in the morning, Tina tried for a third time, where she was given a piece of ambrosia. I know what you're thinking, and yes, eating this would bring Tina back to life, but not quite in the way that I wanted. Either with extreme luck, or possibly because of a bug, the well also still had a happy face at this stage, meaning that Tina didn't need to make another 5,000 simoleon offering to the well yet. And after a day of superselling her crops and napping, Tina made a fourth wish for life at around 7 PM that night. This time she got the best outcome, and the well brought Tina back to life through its own powers. But this wasn't all, because being brought back to life this way saw Tina make a pact with the Grim Reaper, promising instant resurrection in the case of death. Thrilled, Tina went and grabbed her fully charged hematite necklace and popped it on. Her journey to death-proofing herself was complete. Tina had multiple traits that would grant her immunity to various deaths. She also had a necklace that would ensure that she survived literally everything. And if by some chance something snuck through the cracks and posed a threat to Tina's life, then she had a literal pact with the Grim Reaper that would ensure her survival. The only thing that could possibly pose a threat to Tina now is old age, and that was something that she could very easily deal with and prevent. She had gained 9 new traits and completed 2 aspirations on the way to death-proofing herself, and had survived quite possibly the most dangerous part of her life. Tina was ready for new goals, and she had one more major goal in mind before she turned her attention to university. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, then consider subscribing to stay up to date with the series. And I hope you have an amazing day. See you later.